The First Presbyterian Church of Southampton just recently celebrated its 384th anniversary. In a pamphlet titled, "At the Feet of Christ and His Church," Reverend Randall Lee Saxon, pastor of the church from 1979 to 1986, stated, "On the 10th of March in 1640, 20 men in Lynn, Massachusetts, signed a document entitled Declaration of the Company. With strokes of the feather quill pen, which in ink sealed that declaration, Southampton Presbyterian Church was conceived." The declaration, in clear and concise English, stated that the church was to be gathered and constituted according to the mind of Christ, and that all matters coming before the new colony headed for Long Island should be laid at the feet of Christ and His church.
I'm standing at the historic First Presbyterian Church of Southampton, New York. This church was founded in 1640 by Puritans leaving New England and establishing a new community and a new church in Southampton. They came across the bay, the sound of Long Island, and established this church as one of the earliest churches settled on Long Island.
George Rogers Howell argued that the colony was intended by this company, along with Massachusetts Governor Winthrop, to be planted as near as possible to the Dutch settlements, which was confirmed later by Winthrop himself in the History of New England. James Truslow Adams confirmed that this planting of new towns as offshoots from the original Massachusetts Bay Colony was a distinctive feature of New England, with Lynn, settled in 1629, having been a leader in settling up to 6 other villages. With Captain Daniel Howe at the helm, this small group of Puritans departed for Long Island, leaving Massachusetts to establish a new colony in America.
Today we're going to speak with the current pastor of the church, Pastor Paul Lent, about the history of this dynamic and unique church. Let's go inside and explore.
Welcome to First Presbyterian Church, Southampton, New York.
Things did not go as planned. The settlers sailed from Massachusetts and landed at Cow Neck, Long Island, where they were arrested but later released by the Dutch authorities. They left western Long Island and settled in Southampton on the East End. According to tradition, the settlers landed at Conscience Point in Peconic Bay, where they settled Old Town, about 3/4 of a mile east of present Southampton Village. Adams notes that one of the key figures of the settlers was the minister of the church, Abraham Pearson. According to David Kay of the Presbyterian Historical Society's National Archives, as the Puritans traveled from Massachusetts to Long Island, so too did they export the tenets of their faith. They founded what was considered the oldest Presbyterian congregation in America, First Presbyterian Church, Southampton, New York. The first meeting house was erected in 1640. Sketches of the church depict the original building as a small and unassuming structure.
So let's start off with, Pastor, can you tell us the year that the church was founded and perhaps describe its founding?
So the First Presbyterian Church of Southampton was founded in 1640. It was founded at the same time as the first English settlement in the state of New York. It was settled by a group of Puritans coming from Lynn, Massachusetts, the Massachusetts Bay Colony. Having tried to settle in Oyster Bay, Long Island in March and kicked out by the Dutch, they headed further out east to a tract of land that they had been granted by a land claim from the Earl of Stirling, a Scotsman that was friends of King James. And so they started a town and a church and a settlement here in 1640. And the town and the church and its inhabitants were one at that time. Yeah. So by November, December 1640, they had a building built that they worshipped in. It was also the government center. It was the public building for the community. And so the church the town government and everything existed in the same structure, but the church claims it as our first church building.
Now, there's an article in the Presbyterian Historical Society by David Kay, the National Archives of the PCUSA, and he describes First Presbyterian Church Southampton as, quote, the oldest, unquote, Presbyterian congregation in America. Do you agree with that statement, and why?
So we certainly have a claim to that title. There are differing opinions about what constitutes a Presbyterian church. Our church was started in June in 1640 with the settlement of the town, but we didn't get a minister here until early December 1640, where Southold got a minister in a month prior to us. However, that congregation didn't join the presbytery, I think, until 1843 or something, so they weren't quick to become Presbyterians. This congregation seems to be identified by Governor Winthrop as being different. They wanted their own tract of land, but they are also probably, Cotton Mather claims that 20% of the Massachusetts Bay Colony preferred Presbyterian polity. And it seems that the folks that settled Southampton were believers in electing and the leadership of elders in a Presbyterian form of government. And so within the first years of their existence, they were electing elders. And so I would definitely affirm that this, I think it is the oldest Presbyterian church in the United States. Of course, there was no presbytery at the time. The Westminster Confession of Faith wasn't written until 1648, 8 years after this congregation was started. This congregation very quickly, they joined a presbytery of Philadelphia, which had existed for some years. They traveled all the way from here to Philadelphia in 1716 to attend that meeting and to get permission to form their own presbytery out here. And the Presbytery of New York at the time, which is Presbytery of Long Island, was founded in 1717 right here in this congregation. So I think that this congregation's DNA right from the start had been strongly Presbyterian. So I would say yes. There's a long answer to a controversial question.
I hope you enjoyed this presentation, and I hope you learned something about the history of the founding of the First Presbyterian Church of Southampton, Long Island. Thank you for watching.